Hello and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to show you something different. It's not a sound journey, it's not an ambient track. It is how I created an intro for a podcast of a friend. So basically, that's the podcast series here, Shakti Unleashed, by my friend Stephanie Berg. And basically, she reached out to me to create a sort of intro for a podcast because the royalty-free music was not what she was looking for. And basically, the podcast is about activating you to truly remember and reclaim the truth of who you are. It is a podcast initiating you into the wild depths of your truest nature before the world came in and told you who to be. You know, so this is basically like awakening the wild part in the woman's. It's about expressing yourself authentically. It's about sacred sensuality, intimacy, and more. And yeah, Steph is an amazing woman that doesn't hold the words back. She's very expressive, and she basically told me that she would like something. I think she used the words Costa Rica codes. So I know her from Costa Rica, and she basically was asking for something short but kind of intense and jungly and wild, and something, you know, that she can use for the podcast that captures the essence. So I thought I'm going to check my Organic Shamanic House template and see what is possible, right? So I started listening to some of the sounds and basically creating a sequence that kind of resembles this vibe. And basically all the loops here, all the clips that are turned red are the ones that I selected. So let's start by singling them out, and maybe we go over here for now because here's the volume automation so we can listen to them one by one. So we have the maracas. Of course, I started with the ambience. So those are the sounds. I was just playing them all at the same time and to get a feeling. And then I think there was a shamanic drum as well. Yeah, number 17. So this is what I first had in mind, right? I ended up not using this Ambira actually. And I tried this one as well, the handpan. Right, so this is kind of capturing the vibe. It's kind of wild and jungly and like Costa Rica, but it's also like mystical, and kind of enchanting. And yeah, having this kind of awakening feeling. And I think like one of the most important elements is this one here. The flute atmo. This is like what really is creating this mystical, activating, sexy Shakti vibe. And then of course the jungle sounds. And then, some more atmosphere. And I think I might end up using... Which kalimba did I use in the end? Number 8, yeah. So I ended up using this kalimba because it was kind of more mystical. Yeah, and then basically I just had to make the arrangement, and the idea is to make it like really short, right? So at first I had it like this, like fading in, but it can only be like 30 seconds or something. So it has to be like really dynamic already. And now let's listen to the final result. right? So everything needs to come in like rather quickly, but still there needs to be this sense of progression happening. So yeah, basically there is this climactic crescendo kind of happening, and I even realized that this is too long of an intro, you know, so I ended up going from here pretty much, so that we have the fade in starting here quicker, right? Because we have only 30 seconds more or less, and then we want it to come in like, you know, like a little fade in, of course, and a little progression, and fading in all the elements, but basically everything going to setting up the vibe pretty quickly, because yeah, you don't have much time for an intro. It's not like a 15-minute sound journey or like a 9-minute down tempo track. You have to be pretty efficient and yeah, at the same time not overloading it. So yeah, this is what I ended up with. So it's kind of progressing. Then the percussions come in here, right, with that transition flute sound, and it's building and building, and then it's peaking here, and I have this transition sound with the flute here and the drums, right? So if you listen again here, this is like super easy way to kind of make an accent and let it fade out, because you see everything is stopping, you know, except the drums here. They are like slowly still, right? That's the last part that is still in there, and everything else is stopping like immediately. And I can't do that because I have this transition sound here. This flute is kind of a climactic flute sound here. If we solo this out, it's just like, right, it has the drum hit and the flute, and this is like a pretty clear, you know, transition sound, or even like outro ending sound. So yeah, it was just working perfectly well for me to cut everything. I was like thinking like, shit, how can I make it like the transition? How can I create this climax? But it was actually really easy with those flute effect sounds, and then just fading everything out basically. So those are the elements. Let's have a look at the mix real quick. So what we did here, listening to the percussions. Let's listen solo. Right, so I applied some EQ and some glue compression. First I sent with the utility, I put the bass to mono just for phasing issues and to make sure that there's not too much muddy frequencies in the stereo field. Then I applied a little boost around 90 Hertz to accentuate that low end a little bit more, especially like this one drum hit here. Then I created a little dip around 200 Hertz, which just creates a little bit more clarity. Like usually this area 200-250 Hertz in the drum loops, it's mainly really muddy, and you can hear it's kind of becoming more clear and more defined. So I just made a dip here around 200 Hertz. And I also felt it was a bit sharp here around the 1000 Hertz. So if you hear it, right, it's a bit bright. So just tame it a little bit. And then I applied a high shelf because it was pretty bright, like especially the higher sounds, the cymbal sounds and stuff like that. You know, and you would have to listen, of course, in context of the mix. And yeah, I just wanted to sound a bit darker, right? This is why I rolled off the highs here in the presence area. And then at the same time, I wanted the hits, you know, like the hand hitting the drums and all the percussive attack sounds to be more present. That's why I boosted the 3K area here, so you can hear it becomes a lot more present, and this is punching in the mix. But if I turn it off here, they are not coming through the mix so much, but if I increase it and boost around 3K, you hear all the hits and the attacks a lot better. And then basically I had added a glue compression here with a slower attack so that we don't lose the transients. And if we look at the dynamic range here, there's quite a difference between the lowest and the highest part. So we're having quite a lot of gain reduction here, like a ratio of 4:1. Makeup gain 3 decibels. And it's just, you know, like if I turn it off, it's all over the place, especially with the louder and quieter hits. And this is just like evening it out, making it tighter, making it sit more in the mix. So I usually apply glue compression on those percussion loops just to even them out more, reduce the dynamic range, and make it sound more coherent and more clear. So yeah, that's it for that drum loop. Then let's check the maracas here. Same thing, like a glue compressor, little auto pan here to make it move. Right, it's like really subtle. It's set to the random, or like, yeah, the random waveform for the LFOs. So it's like not like super predictable like the sine wave. It just goes like from left to right very evenly, but this is a bit more chaotic, so a bit more random, a bit more natural, but it's taking its time. So over the course of 6 beats, it's changing from left to right, really subtle, right? The amount, if I increase the amount, you will hear it a lot more drastically, especially if you have headphones or close to the speakers. But yeah, that was too much. I just wanted it to be subtle, like barely noticeable. And then I use the hot driven tape sometimes a lot to smooth out the high end, if you can hear that. You know, it's like saturating, but it's also smoothing out the high end a little bit. So it sounds a bit more dark and a bit more organic and not so, yeah, shiny. I don't like shamanic shakers too shiny, so I always use the hot driven tape preset to, yeah, smooth the high end out. And then I also applied like a low cut here because I don't need all that low end. You know, like there's some low end here because it's a recorded shaker and it's the room noise and stuff. We don't want that. It's muddying up the mix. But then I did, again, increase just the shake a little, like the presence area. And then boost it a little bit, the high end. And then smooth it out a little bit, but you know, without it, it's just in the background, like the shaker needs really to cut through a little bit. So boosting that area makes it cut through, but this was too bright for me, so I applied the hot tape. And then we have the Udo here. Not much going on, bass mono, and then low cut, everything below 60 Hertz because the shamanic drum is sitting there and I don't want it to overlap. A little dip here around 200 Hertz again. Just a muddy, you know, it makes it more defined and focuses more on this area and on this area again where I have like the presence increased, right? You hear the hand tapping a lot better when it's increased here. And here we did nothing, so we could actually disable that. Just boosting the presence here, and then it's subtle glue compression again because there's a little bit of dynamic going on here to smooth that out. So that's that. And then the ambience here. Again, just a low cut to like not have the super low frequencies. Also a bit too much, and I don't want it to be so subby. Bass mono again, glue compression again, because there is like this kind of evolving sound to tame that a little bit and make it a little bit more coherent. See, like this, it's a bit more uncontrolled and all over the place. And this is more consistent. And then a little more obvious auto pan, also moving from left to right to create this immersive sensation of it moving around the head. A little bit more amount here. And yeah, then a cut in the high frequencies because I don't need the high end there. I want to focus more on the low mids and the mids. So we boosted the mids. Actually not. No, we took out a little bit around 3K. You know, which was a bit too aggressive, I guess. Smoothing it out a little. And yeah, that's it for this one. Let's check the kalimba. In case you wonder how the EQ got so big, if you click on this triangle here, you can actually extend it. And then you see it on a bigger resolution. So again, like a cut around 200. Just, you know, removing a little bit of mud, creating more clarity, cutting like a low roll off here around 90 Hertz. Then taking out a little bit of the mud around 600 here. And also it would sound a little bit sharp and piercing, so I reduced the highs quite a bit, around 5K, and rolled off the super high frequencies here. You know, because it's just too sharp and piercing, and we don't really need that. We just want this kind of warm sound. And then just a glue compressor here. And then I didn't end up using this sound. Let's check the flute. Didn't do much here except taking out a lot of the mids, which was like super overrepresented. You know, just making it more breathy, I guess. And leave more space for all the other elements that live in this area, like the instruments and percussions. We don't really need that frequency there. Yeah, and then just a glue compressor to control it a little more. And then we have this Atmo, very important. Didn't do too much here. Rolling off everything below 90 to make space for the shamanic drums. Taking out a little bit around 200 here. Taking out a little bit around 700. You know, I was a bit overrepresented. Just make it a little bit more controlled. And then taking out a lot of the high frequencies here. It was like this, kind of like a de-essing sound. You know, it's pretty sharp. Makes it a bit softer, the breath and the sibilance. And then we have this here. There's not much going on actually. And the water, same. It's funny, I should have applied actually some EQ here, especially like for the low end. Funny that I forgot that. I was probably in a rush. But yeah, you can cut out everything below 80. You don't really need that. And you can take out some of the mids. You know, it really depends. Boost a little bit the high end here. Taking out some of the mud. Right, it sounds a little more clear. Yeah, I should have done it like that. All right, and then let's check the master here. So here's some little tricks I did. I always apply like a little tape saturation on the master. I really like the slate one, you know, just because it's gluing things really well together. And it's adding a lot of low end. I don't know if you can hear that, but because of the saturation, you know, it's boosting the low end and it's just smoothing out the high end and makes it sound more glued together. And then I have a little glue compressor here, also from Slate, you know, just to glue the overall signal like slightly, not more than 1 decibel of gain reduction. And then I have the Bomber here, which is a pretty cool mixing plugin. It's doing a lot of things, like depending on the settings, like parallel compression and EQing and stereo widening. And this is like a preset called Mixbus 3D that I like a lot for immersive sounds. So, you know, it's just making it a little bit wider, fatter, boosting it in a nice way, like some frequencies, making it more alive and immersive. So I like this one. Then on the master, just created a dip here around 300. And then the good old Guldfoss, you know, taming and recovering frequencies in real time. So that's like a dynamic EQ and a lot more going on under the hood. But it's like taking care of the sounds in real time and adjusting the frequencies based on the algorithm, which is pretty cool and really like a game changer in mixing. And then tonal balance control to check. You know, I have like a reference track here. And just to see if I'm in the ballpark of the frequencies here. It's good to get some visual feedback as well, just not like what you're hearing, because I'm using just headphones most of the time and my sub pack, so it's good to also get a visual representation and to have like some referencing. Yeah, and that's basically it. Of course, I would apply the limiter to boost it. Right now, I turned it down because it would be too loud for the video. It would overpower my voice. But yeah, that's the intro sound for the podcast. If you are interested, I highly recommend you to check it out, especially if you're a woman. It's more key to women, but even as a man, I think you learn a lot about the psychology of women. And yeah, in general, it's just really interesting to connect with your wild side and to tap into that part of your being. All right, yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.